What's the worst punishment you ever received as a child? My grandparents beating my mother in front of me for me talking to her. I was in their custody and my mother was an addict who they didn't want around, and she kept trying to call and come see me. So she came over and my grandparents beat her, broke her jaw and nose, and said it was my fault for talking to her. I was 7. I was driven about 30 minutes outside of my city to an isolated, large, and creepy looking building, which I was told was an orphanage. I was given the choice of telling the truth and admitting to something I had not done, or being left there. I'm 38 and still think about this from time to time. Update, not to excuse what they did, but my mum and dad both had terrible upbringings with abusive parents. My dad was full of anger and my mum was rather weak and full of shame. I started therapy about 5 years ago and was reaching a point where I was going to decide whether to confront my parents with how I felt about my childhood or cut them from my life. Then my dad died. With his death, a lot of my own anger about how they'd behaved went. I've been able to be the bigger person with my mum and set her a better example of how to behave, including how I expect her to behave towards me. Our relationship is stronger than it has ever been, and I don't dwell on this event in the same way. I used to be hurt thinking about it. Now I see it as the reactions of angry and scared people to a situation they couldn't control, and resolve to do better myself. When I was around 6 years old, my stepdad woke me up in the night by pulling me out of the bed and yelling that I had got piss on the toilet seat. He took me out on the front porch, and while he was paddling me, the rail I was bracing against broke, and I fell off the porch. My mom said I couldn't have a best friend anymore because my best friend and I were drawing pentagrams on manuscript paint at our after school program, pretending they were transmutation circles from an anime called Full Metal Alchemist. Pentagrams are much easier for a 9-year-old to draw than an intricate alchemy array. My mom immediately jumped to this being devil worshipping, despite my friend and I not even knowing what a pentagram really meant. This led to my mom telling every single teacher and after school care worker not to allow me to be anywhere near my friend. Friend moves away and mom won't let me email her to stay in touch. I'm 24 now and haven't had any close friends since. Christina, if you're out there, I still miss you. My dad holding me up by grabbing my ear and my foot. Lol, my mom broke the cartilage in my ear like this. It turned blackish and hurt when the wind blew. Thought I had an ear infection. She took me to the doctor. Guy says this shit broke. What happened? I hadn't realized what happened until the doctor asked me, and I thought for a few seconds and saw my mother staring at me, and I went I fell. I always thought I just saved this bitch a really awkward situation, lol. My mum took everything in my room except a blanket, my radio, books, toys, you name it. I was locked in there for the UK summer holidays. They are 6 weeks long. My mum used to beat 10 bells of shit out of, but being locked in that room the whole summer was probably the worst. Beatings will continue until your moral improvers in all ducking serious. Life got better and I never see my dad anymore and him and my mom ask when I'm having kids and why I haven't seen them in years despite living probably 30 minutes from them. In the 1980s, my father was a radioman and often had spare parts lying around. Whenever I was rebellious toward him, he was fond of whipping my bare back with metal radio antenna. When I was 8 years old, I had every dish in the house thrown at me including a loaf of bread. I was then locked outside till midnight. I was first put out in the morning. Once I was left out front. 4-year-old me thought, ha, imago over there. They couldn't find me because I was going to the park, down the road, on my own, in the cold. The pointless ones. We had landscaping rocks in our yard from an unfinished project. They were probably £30 each. After a number of other punishments failed, my parents came up with the move rocks punishment. I'd have to move 30 or so of these rocks 50 yards, set them up into a particular shape, square, circle, etc. Closed bracket comma, have my parents check them, and then move them all back. The pointlessness of it all was the worst. Bamboo feather duster to the butt. It's basically caning. My mom pulled down my pants and hit me with the brush side of a hairbrush. In front of my 3 fellow 5-year-old friends. I was innocent. She didn't believe me. An ass whooping from dad. That his grip and my trying to run. Broke my arm. Got put on restriction for 6 months for doing something my mom said I could do. But then she said she never gave me permission to do, even though another adult was sitting there and confirmed he heard her give me permission to do it. Also had to pick up all the rocks in the vacant lot next to our house and put them in a pile on weekends as part of the punishment. I shit my pants in the 4th grade. I don't know why, but I had a condition that made me hold it all in and not use a toilet. This had been going on and off my entire life, not a problem anymore. My dad was furious. I remember being naked in my bedroom with my dad. My dirty underwear was on the floor and my dad had a hard grip on my arm while he screamed and yelled at me. He yelled at me things like, "How old are you? No one is gonna wanna be your friend and you're disgusting." He then beat me his belt. My dad worked at a flour mill and spent his days stacking 100-pound flour bags 10 high, so he was built like the ducking Hulk. He would then rub my shit-filled underwear in my face, making me look at it and smell it. Hands tied behind my back with a belt so I couldn't cover myself, and then beat about the face, neck and shoulders with another belt for several minutes. Dad was a real piece of shit. Edit. Thanks for the kind words. Life got better. Probably getting strangled by my dad after I stormed away from the dinner table while yelling that I hated eating with my parents because all they did was yell and curse at one another. Strangling sucks. Around the time I was 12 or 13, my stepdad strangled me with my little cousins downstairs simply because I was annoying him. I honestly thought I was going to die. He did a lot of shitty things, but that was the worst. Not me, but my son actually. He is a little fella, as are his mother and myself. She would force him to drink nothing but Pediasure with every meal and go ballistic when he would not be able to finish the terrible frozen meal she made him. She sent a message to me saying he was hiding food he didn't want to eat and that she beat his ass and I should expect bruising. The next day my father picks him up and dropped him off to my girlfriend at our house. After dinner she went to put him in the shower and was horrified at what she saw. Imagine a tiny 7-year-old boy with a completely bruised ass, and I mean deep purple, yellow and green bruises. She called me immediately. I rushed home from work, calling the police on my way. A sergeant from my local PD was very helpful and supportive to my little boy. Told me what to file and how to file it, and that I should rush to Children's Hospital. He also called his lifelong best friend who is a captain in the town where my ex-wife lives. Within 2 weeks I had full emergency custody and she had domestic violence charges. Fast forward a year and I'm a sole custodial parent and my son is thriving. He has gained almost 20 lbs. Can now ride a bike without training wheels. He could not ride one at all when we took custody. Good food, positive attention, and lots of love have helped him grow tremendously. I was the youngest of 3 girls in my family. My worst punishment came after my dad left. As a baby, my dad would beat my sisters for any little thing they did wrong, but because I was born on his birthday, he saw me as special. My father was a drug addict who brought fear into the home and only I wasn't touched by his fists and feet. My sisters and mom were all victims, and while they tended their wounds I was smothered and loved. They hated me for it. Dad left and now no one was protecting me. What was my worst punishment? I was locked up. My mom would lock me in my room for hours and my sisters had free reign on me with their punishments. Every time I stepped out of line, I was reminded how much hate there was. I was beat by my sisters and neglected by my mother. My worst punishment was when I said to my mom that I hated her and the family and I wished they were all dead. She grabbed me by the hair, dragged me into the laundry, and locked me in there. The floor was stone, and it was winter. I remember being so cold it hurt. I guess I was asleep when I was eventually let out. I hated my punishments. The locking up stopped when I was around 12. My uncle would have me stand T-pose and hold books. Not too bad. Then I have to stand on my toes. Then he would put nails sticking up under my heels. He would dare me to relax edit. On a related to my uncle note, he also chased me and my cousin, his own child, with a BB gun and shot at us. He eventually hit my cousin in the eye. The BB got stuck on his eyelid. So thankfully, there was very minimal damage to his eyeball. At Catholic school with nuns as teachers, those bitches were doing the devil's work. I remember being forced to kneel on hardwood floors on popcorn kernels while saying the rosary. Duck you, Sister Mary Joan, you evil witch. I was in kindergarten and I had peed myself because I was having too much fun watching a movie in class. The teacher put me in the bathroom with the lights out and door closed for the rest of the movie, 45 minutes or so, and it was storming really badly outside. I'm still afraid of the dark and loud noises. 7 years old. I wouldn't move my hands from my butt, so my mom dragged me to the bathroom. While there she lifted me up by my legs and attempted to give me a swirly. My hands immediately latched onto the toilet bowl to stop my head from falling in. Then my mom freed up one of her hands to turn my ass red. After a few hits my arms gave out and my head dropped hard into the toilet water. After that she yelled at me for 5 more minutes and ordered me to take a shower. She still denies doing this or any of the other corporal punishment my sister and I were subjected to. Either the cigarette burns to my scalp or the days without food because I misbehaved. My parents were, and still are, meth addicts. Duck them. Jeez. I hope you don't have to deal with them anymore. I cut them off years ago. My mother occasionally sends me a text message saying happy birthday, I love you. And I'm wondering if she's sober since she got the date right this year. My dad, well, I haven't talked to him in 15 years. He came into a place I used to work a few years back and stood about 3 feet away from me and didn't even recognize me. So I guess that's a win. My parents homeschooled me in my last year of school because I had a boyfriend. Lost my seat and scholarship to the college I had early acceptation for since the 11th grade. And then took my resp for themselves to go on a cruise when I went with a different program because I didn't have the marks for the original program. Probably when my mom spanked me with the back of her favorite hairbrush. Then the hairbrush broke and I got spanked some more because that was her favorite hairbrush. My stepbrother punched me in the face and gave me a bloody lip. My stepmother decided as a punishment she would hit us both with a belt. I don't know why I was in trouble for getting punched, but she held onto the end of the belt with the holes and swung the belt buckle at us. It hit the back of my right hand and I still feel the pain in the back of my hand when I squeeze something with it. I got punished for getting punched in the face. I still don't understand what I did wrong 23 years later. My dad once told me that if I let the word shit cross my lips again, I'd truly have shit cross my lips. I didn't listen and said it again that night. And he took a piece of fresh dog poop and made me hold it on my tongue for 30 seconds. I cried and never cursed again until I was 21. I grew up with my grandma and I can't exactly remember what I did, but next thing I know she's laying a pile of uncooked rice in the corner to kneel on for 10 minutes. It felt like I was kneeling in a gravel driveway with shard rocks. Forgot about the time she threw me outside in the snow in my boxers and locked the door. I was 8. Definitely the buck rag. I still feel sick thinking about it. For those who don't know, a buck rag is a rag that's been rubbed all over a male goat in rut. It's used for some goat breeding purposes. Lady goats love the smell. In our town, some parents would buy these rags from goat farmers to punish children for misbehaving. You take the child out back, pull the rag out of the jar, drape it over the child's face, and tie a knot in the back. It's not dangerous, but it makes them smell the horrible goat odor. I never saw what the big deal was until I was buck-ragged as a 16-year-old girl for cursing out my parents. I puked a lot. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.